The small town lay in the stillness of night. Not a sound, only the dim yellow glow of the streetlights spilling onto the white snow, casting long, crooked shadows. Snowflakes fell silently, swirling in the freezing wind. Then a bark rang out. At first it was a single cry, but within seconds it became rapid, urgent, like it was calling to someone or begging for help. Emma, a 10-year-old girl with bright eyes, startled. Her colored pencil slipped from her fingers and rolled across the floor. She pressed her face to the cold window glass, her breath fogging it. Through the thin veil of mist, Emma saw a man. He wore a hood pulled low, a thick black coat draped over his shoulders. In his hand, clutched tightly, a leash. At the other end, a German shepherd struggled, its paws dragging against the snow as the man yanked hard, forcing it to limp along. Emma's heart pounded. "Mum, there's someone—" Her voice trembled. From the kitchen, Sarah, Emma's mother, looked up from slicing cake. She frowned. "Sweetheart, you must have imagined it. It's freezing out there. Come inside." But Emma knew she hadn't imagined it. The dog's eyes had met hers, piercing through the darkness. And in that fleeting moment, she'd seen something there, raw fear and a silent plea. She turned back to the window, but the man and the dog had already vanished around the corner. The snow kept falling, covering their tracks. Emma hugged herself tight. That image replayed in her mind over and over. She knew, tonight, she wouldn't sleep. Emma tossed and turned under her blanket. The faint glow from her bedside lamp fell over the quilt. Outside, the wind howled through the gaps in the window frame, making the room feel colder still. But what truly kept her awake were the dog's eyes from earlier that night. She rolled over, peering out the window again. The street lay untouched, blanketed in white, as though nothing had happened. Only a faint trail of footprints and drag marks remained, but the wind was already erasing them. Emma slid out of bed, the floorboards creaking beneath her bare feet. She tiptoed to the hallway, careful not to wake her mum. At the top of the stairs, she hesitated. The living room was dark, save for the streetlight glow seeping in through the curtains. A sudden sound, a faint, muffled whimper, froze her in place. It was coming from outside. Emma's pulse quickened. She rushed to the front door and pressed her ear against it. Yes, she could hear it, a low, trembling sound. She cracked the door open just enough to peek out. There, at the far end of the street, a shadow moved. The man again, but this time, no dog. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The man paused, scanning the street. Even from here, she could sense the cold intent in his movements. She shut the door quietly, heart pounding. Back in her room, Emma pulled the blanket up to her chin. Her mind raced with questions. Where was the dog? Why was the man alone now? And why did she feel like he'd noticed her? Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. The man's sudden appearance, the missing dog, the way he'd looked around as if hiding something. The next morning, the snow lay untouched, glistening under the pale winter sun. Emma bundled up in her coat and scarf, telling her mum she was going to shovel the porch. But once outside, her eyes darted toward the street corner where the man had disappeared. That's when she saw it, half buried in the snow. A collar, torn, frayed at one end, the clasp bent as if ripped apart in a struggle. Emma knelt and brushed off the snow. Her stomach dropped. The tag had a name etched into it, Max. She turned the collar over in her hands, glancing around nervously. A faint trail of paw prints led toward the woods, barely visible now. And alongside them, boot prints. Emma hesitated. The woods were silent, the kind of silence that made you feel watched. Her breath fogged in the air as she took one step forward, then another. A sudden snap of a twig echoed from deep within. Emma froze, her pulse in her throat. Through the trees, a shadow moved, slowly, deliberately. She couldn't see his face, but she knew it was him. Emma darted back toward the house, clutching the collar. She slammed the door behind her, gasping for breath. Sarah came in from the kitchen, startled. "Emma, what happened?" Emma held out the collar. "It's his, the dog, Max." Sarah's brow furrowed. She took the collar, turning it over in her hands. "Sweetheart, you shouldn't be wandering off like that." "But, Mom, there were footprints, and I think I saw him." Sarah looked toward the window, the unease in her eyes betraying her calm voice. "Emma, maybe it was just a neighbor. People walk their dogs all the time." Emma shook her head. "Not like this." That night, Emma kept the collar hidden under her pillow. She lay awake, listening. And then, just past midnight, she heard it again. Barking, faint, muffled, but frantic. She slipped out of bed, crept to the window, and saw a flicker of movement near the tree line. Two figures, one crouched, one standing, seemed to be arguing in hushed, angry tones. The wind shifted, carrying the sharp snap of the dog's yelp to her ears. The next day, Emma decided she had to find Max before it was too late. She confided in her best friend, Liam, after school. Liam's eyes widened as she told him everything. "You can't just go after him," Liam said. "What if he's dangerous?" Emma hesitated, then pulled out the collar. "If I don't, who will?" They made a plan. Early Saturday morning, they'd follow the trail into the woods. When dawn broke, the world was covered in frost. They met at the edge of the forest, each carrying a flashlight and wearing thick coats. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. The snow muffled their steps, but every creak of the branches felt amplified. Then they found it, a makeshift shelter of tarps and plywood, hidden behind a cluster of pines. In front of it, chained to a post, was Max. His fur was matted, his eyes wide with recognition. Emma's heart leapt, but before she could move, a voice growled from the shadows. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." The man stepped forward, his hood casting a shadow over his face. His gloved hands gripped a length of chain. "What do you want with him?" Emma demanded, her voice trembling. The man smirked. "He's mine, always has been." Max's ears flattened, and he gave a low growl. Liam glanced at Emma nervously. "We should go?" But Emma stood her ground. "If he's yours, why is he chained up out here in the cold?" The man's smirk faded. "That's none of your business. Now, get out." Emma took a step toward Max, but the man tightened his grip on the chain. "I said, leave." They had no choice. Emma's heart ached as they turned back, Max's eyes following them until the trees swallowed them from view. That evening, Emma couldn't eat. She kept hearing Max's soft whine in her mind. She researched missing dogs in the area on her mom's old laptop. That's when she found it, an online post from 6 months ago. A family in the next town had been searching for their German shepherd named Max. Same markings, same gentle eyes. Emma printed the page and showed it to Liam. "See, he's not that man's dog. We have to tell someone." But Liam shook his head. "Without proof, no one will believe us. And if we get too close again..." They both knew the risk, but Emma also knew she couldn't let Max spend another night out there. The next night, Emma slipped out of her house with a flashlight and the printed photo. She made her way to the woods, her breath sharp in the cold air. She found the shelter again, but it was empty. No Max, no man. Just an abandoned chain lying in the snow. Panic surged through her. She followed fresh tracks leading deeper into the woods toward the frozen river. And then she saw them. The man dragging Max across the ice. "Stop!" Emma's voice cracked in the stillness. The man whipped around, his face finally visible under the moonlight. His eyes were sharp, his jaw tight. "You again?" Emma took a step forward. "He's not yours. His family's looking for him." The man's expression darkened. They don't deserve him? Nobody does. Not after what happened. Before Emma could ask, Max lunged toward her, the chain slipping from the man's grasp. Max ran to her side, pressing against her legs. The man froze, then took a step back. "You have no idea what you're getting into, kid." Emma didn't move. "Maybe not, but I know you're wrong." Footsteps crunched behind her. She turned to see Liam and two uniformed officers. The officers approached cautiously. "Sir, step away from the dog." The man looked between them, his eyes calculating. Then, without a word, he bolted into the trees. One officer gave chase while the other checked Max's collar. "This matches the missing dog report. You just saved him, kid." Emma's chest swelled with relief. Max nuzzled into her, his tail wagging weakly. But in the shadows beyond the trees, she thought she saw movement. The man's silhouette lingered for just a second before vanishing into the darkness. Max was reunited with his real family 2 days later. They cried as they hugged him, thanking Emma over and over. But Emma couldn't stop thinking about the man's words. Not after what happened. Late one night, she found an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a photo, Max as a puppy, sitting in the lap of the hooded man. On the back, scrawled in shaky handwriting, "Take care of him this time." Emma stared at it for a long moment, her heart heavy with questions. She didn't know the full story. Maybe she never would. But as she looked at Max, sleeping peacefully beside his family, she knew one thing. Sometimes heroes and villains weren't so easy to tell apart. And somewhere out there, the man was still watching.